What's up, y'all? So recently I've been working on the deck extension project at my parents' house, and to give you guys some backstory, earlier this summer I ended up restaining this deck, and now my parents want me to extend the deck so that they can have a nice separate area to cook out on. The new deck extension is going to be 10 feet by 10 feet, so I placed some initial stakes near the corner of the deck to get a feel for the area. After a few days I was able to get a utility locate done, and the only utilities I have in this area is the electrical power line, which is in red, and a communications line, which is in orange. This quickly became a concern because the communications line was only a few inches away from where I planned on extending the deck, and I knew that I would most likely hit this line while digging the footings, so I decided to move the extension from the corner of the deck to the middle of the deck so that I can avoid hitting the communications line altogether. I ended up having to move a couple of these pavers out the way so that I can go ahead and place the rest of my stakes, and after getting a new hammer I was able to get the rest of my stakes in, and using this screen line came in handy because I was able to attach the screen to both sides of my stakes, and I was able to pull straight lines to reference from. To mark my footings, I attached the screen line to my existing deck post, and then I pulled two straight lines so that I can reference the width of the post, and with this knowledge I was able to mark my footings on center. I live in North Carolina, and according to the building code the minimum size of my deck footings must be 8 inches by 16 inches, so I went ahead and marked out all 9 of my footings, and with this many footings the deck will be able to handle a strong load and help support the roof post that I plan on installing later. Thank you guys for watching, and this video is the start of a series of me building out this deck extension, and in the next few videos I'll be showing you guys how to dig the holes for the footings and how to set your deck posts, so make sure you guys stay tuned. But until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 2 of the deck extension project, and now that I got my footings marked out I can go ahead and dig the holes for the footings, and instead of digging these 9 holes by hand I'll be using my Hart 40 volt 8-inch brushless auger to get the job done. And with the footings being 8 inches by 16 inches, I had to alternate between digging 2 8-inch holes in order to make the big hole that I need for the footing, and after measuring I continued to dig until the hole had a depth of about 2 feet. Before putting the post in the hole, I poured a 50-pound bag of gravel in, which will help stabilize the post and provide drainage. I used a 4x4 post to compact the gravel and to get it level, and now I have 4 inches of gravel in the hole. To get the post leveled, I used a post level, and once the post was leveled, I used some 2x4s and some leftover stakes to anchor the post in place. I used 50-pound bags of fascia and concrete to fill in the rest of the hole, and for the concrete, all you have to do is pour it in, wet it down, and give it a little mix, and then you can move on to the next bag. While placing the concrete, you want to make sure that you place enough to go above ground elevation so that you can slope it down with a trowel, and this downward slope will prevent any rain from puddling around the post. I repeated the same process to install the rest of the posts, and I also used some screen line along the way to make sure that all the posts were aligned, and there you have it, 9 footings and 9 deck posts all in place. In the next video you get the pleasure of seeing me and my dad struggle to get these 16-foot posts up, so make sure you guys stay tuned. But until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 3 of the deck extension project, and in this video me and my dad are going to be installing the roof post for the deck. And to start off, I use some screen line to lay out the inside perimeter of the deck so that I can go ahead and mark the footings for the roof post. Since I'm using 6x6 posts, I decided that the roof footings would be 12 inches by 12 inches, and once I had these footings marked I repeated the same process as I did to install the deck post footings. The roof posts that I'm going to be placing are 16 feet tall, and I know you guys are going to give me a little slap on the wrist down in the comments, but for these 16-foot posts I only dug the footings down to 2.5 feet. Yes, I said it, 2.5 feet. I know now that this was not the right thing to do, and for a post this tall I should have at least dug the footings down to be 4 feet or more, but during the time of placing the post I knew that I was going to cut a few feet off the post so that I can have a 9 to 10 foot ceiling height, so at the time it made sense to me, but now I realize that I was wrong. In the future I'll make sure I do more due diligence to make sure I'm doing things correctly, but I continued the process of setting the post, using my post level, and anchoring the posts once they were leveled to get the rest of the roof posts up. It was a struggle for me and my dad to get these roof posts up, but we finally got it done, and to celebrate I decided to partake in a good old cigar while wearing my Wolverine flame resistant shirt. If you're interested in any of the Wolverine boots or clothing I've been wearing while building this deck, I have a link in my bio to Wolverine's website where you can go check out their gear. But in the next video I'll be getting all the deck posts cut down to size and start installing the rim joists, so stay tuned. But until next time, y'all, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 4 of the deck extension series, and today I'm going to be cutting these deck posts down and installing the rim joists for the deck. I started off by tying a chalk line to the existing deck post, and then I used a line level to mark where I need to cut the new post at. Once I had the new post marked, I repeated the same process by tying the chalk line around the new post in order to mark the next post, and I continued this until I had the whole row of posts marked. I used my circular saw to cut the post down, and it usually took 3 cuts around the post for it to come tumbling down. It was hard for me to do a third cut on the post close to the existing deck due to the spacing, but for these posts I used my reciprocating saw to make the last cut. I repeated the entire process to get the rest of the deck posts cut down. Before starting on the rim joist, I removed some of the existing balusters so I have room to attach the rim joist to the existing deck. For the rim joist, I'll be using 2 2x10 boards, and I drove in some screws to attach the boards together, and this will make a nice beam for the rim joist. I use my speed square to mark 45-degree angles on the end of the beam so I can go ahead and make some miter cuts. Due to the thickness of the beams, I wasn't able to cut the miters all the way through with my miter saw, but my dad came in clutch with his handsaw and he was able to finish off all the cuts. After cutting the miters, me and my dad was able to set the rim joist in place, and the miters gave us a clean look on the corners. I used some finish nails to temporarily hold the joist together while I toe-nailed in some screws to secure the joist to the existing deck and new deck posts. After this, we got the last joist secured in place, but my camera ended up dying, so I wasn't able to get any footage of it. But in the next video, I'll be knocking down the existing railing with one kick, installing the floor joist and the bridging in between, so stay tuned. But until the next video, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 5 of the deck extension project, and today we're going to be installing the floor joist and blocking for the deck. To start off, I joined my 2x10 boards together so that I could cut them to size and set the middle beam for the deck, and to secure the beam in place, I used some 4-inch structural screws. After getting the beam in place, it was time to remove the existing deck railing, so I used my reciprocating saw to cut both sides of the railing, and then I used my pry bar to loosen the rail post, and we all know what happens after that. With the railing out the way, I can go ahead and set the floor joist, and for the first few joists, I ended up having to set these by myself, so I decided to make a quick jig that I saw in the video to help me out. To make the jig, I attached these small blocks to the end of each joist, and when I went to set the joist, the blocks were able to hold the floor joist in place while I attached them to the deck with joist hangers. I continued along to get the rest of the floor joist in place, and each joist is spaced approximately 16 inches apart, and I also made sure to attach a joist to the existing deck as well. Now that the floor joists are in, I use my chalk line to snap the center point of the joist so I can go ahead and place the bridging for the deck. Before starting on the bridging, my mom brought me out a piece of mini watermelon, and this was so refreshing on a hot day like today. I use offcuts from the floor joist for the bridging and set the boards in a zigzag pattern between each joist, and the purpose of the bridging is to prevent any bounce in the joist and to make the overall deck stronger. The last thing that we had to do was to place blocking around each of the root posts to make them more sturdy, and there you have it, all the joists and blocking for the deck are in place. And in the next video, me and my dad battle against the warped deck boards we have for the flooring, so stay tuned. And as always, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 6 of the deck extension series, and today me and my dad are going to be installing the flooring for the deck. We started off by placing our first board along the edge of the deck, and this is where the battle of the warped deck boards began, as my dad had to pull this board in so that it could be flush with the edge. The next board to be placed needs to go around the root post, so I took a few measurements and then used my jigsaw to cut out the slots, and this board didn't fit the first go around, but after trimming the edge down, it was able to fit. A lot of these deck boards ended up being warped, so I needed to find a solution to get the board straightened out, and that's when my parallel bar clamp swooped in and saved the day. By using these clamps, we was able to clamp the floorboards to the rim joist to straighten out the bend, and then we was able to screw the boards in place. Once we got to the middle of the deck, the clamps were not long enough to attach to the rim joist anymore, so we had to change things up, and to do so we ended up attaching a scrap 2x4 to the previous board we installed, and by doing this we was able to clamp our new board to the 2x4 to straighten it out. This method ended up working pretty well, so we continued doing this until we got close to the root post, and cutting the boards around the root post on this side was a little tricky due to the angles, but after trial and error we was able to get the boards fitted in. I ended up having a small gap that I needed to fill in, so I placed a board over the gap, and then I went under the deck to trace the shape on the board, and then I used my jigsaw to cut this piece out to fill in the gap. The last thing that I had to do was to trim the edges off the deck, so I used my chalk line to snap a straight line, and then I used my circular saw to cut off the edges, and with that the flooring is complete. Thank you guys for watching. In the next video we're going to be installing the rails for the deck, so make sure you guys stay tuned, and until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 7 of the deck extension series, and today we're going to start building the rails for the deck. To start things off, I first measured the existing rail posts so that I can draw the shape of these posts into my new posts. All of the rail posts will basically have a half lap joint with a 45-degree miter on the end, so after drawing this shape out, I used my jigsaw with a huge 10-inch blade to cut the half lap joints. By using this blade, I was able to cut through the whole 4x4 in one pass, and I prefer this method over doing 2 passes with the circular saw. After cutting these out, I was able to line the rail posts up with the support posts for the deck, and once these posts were level, I drove in some screws to secure the posts in place. Cutting the half laps for the corner post was challenging for me because the corner post has 2 faces, which means I can't use my jigsaw blade to cut it out, but by using a combination of my miter saw, circular saw, and a chisel, I was able to cut the notch out and secure the post to the deck. With all the rail posts up, I took a few measurements around the whole deck in order to cut my 2x4s to size for the top railing, and once I marked the center of the rail post in my 2x4s, I was able to toe-nail some screws in to secure the railing in place. As me and my dad continued along, we found that it was best to drive a long screw through the post and into the railing, and this made toe-nailing the screws in a lot easier. We repeated the same process to get the top rails installed around the entire deck, and that gave us a good start on getting these rails knocked out. In the next video, we'll be installing the balusters for the rails, and I'll be showing you guys the mistake I made when installing the top rails, which caused me to have to change the size of the rail caps, so stay tuned. And as always, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? We're finally back with part 11 of the deck extension project, and I know it's been a while, but in the last video we were able to set the beams in place to prepare for the roof, and today we're going to be getting the ridge beam installed. For those of you who don't know, the ridge beam is used as a structural member to support the rafters, and it helps transfer the load of the roof to the post. The roof will have a 412 pitch, so after doing some measurements and calculations, I determined that the top of the ridge beam will sit 18 inches above the roof post. With knowing this, I was able to cut out 4 18-inch boards, and I'll be using these boards to make the supports for the ridge beam. After clamping 2 of the boards together, I drove in some screws to attach the boards, and then I measured the 1-inch by 6-inch board that I'll be using as my ridge beam to draw out these slots on the supports. I used a combination of my circular saw and jigsaw to cut the slots out, and then me and my dad did a quick test fit to make sure the ridge beam fit flush in the supports. After getting the supports centered, we used some clamps to hold it in place, and then I used some angle brackets and tie plates to attach the supports to the beam. The last thing that I had to do was to mark the overhang on both ends of the ridge beam so I know exactly where to place it, and then I used a rubber hammer to knock the beam in place, and after making sure it was leveled, the ridge beam was good to go. Thank you guys for watching the video. In the next video, you get to see me struggle with cutting the rafters for the roof, so stay tuned. But until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 12 of the deck extension project, and today we're going to be cutting out and setting our rafters for the roof. I started things off by marking the center of the ridge beam, and the plan is to start placing the rafters here and working our way out. We are using 2x6s for the rafters, and I can't even lie, it was a challenge getting the first set of rafters cut out correctly, but after doing a little trial and error, I was finally able to figure out a technique that worked best for me. The first cut I needed to make for the rafter was the plumb cut, and to get the angle correct, I had my dad hold the board in place while I lined the edges up. From here, I was able to place a scrap board against the ridge beam to mark a straight reference line, and after I made my cut, we placed the rafter back in place, and you can see that the cut is nice and flush. The last cut I need to make is for the bird's mouth, so I went ahead and marked the width of the beam on the rafter, and I also used my speed square to mark the angle of the plumb cut. After doing that, I made a parallel line where the beam is, and then I made a mark 2/3 of the way down so that I don't cut too much material off for the bird's mouth. On your speed square, there should be a dashed line for marking a C cut, and once I got my speed square line up, I was able to mark the C cut, and I was finally able to cut out my bird's mouth on the rafter. I ended up doing a little adjusting to get the bird's mouth to fit better, but eventually I got it down pat, and I was able to make a template to use as a reference for the rest of the rafters. To attach the rafters, my dad used some joist hangers that he cut down and some hurricane ties to get the rafters secured. From there, we just took our time and repeated the same process for each rafter, and we spaced each of the rafters close to 2 feet apart. Thank you guys for watching this video, and let me know down in the comments how you cut your rafters. This was my first time doing it, so I'm looking for ways to improve. In the next video, me and my dad are going to be installing the fly rafters, so stay tuned, and as always, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 13 of the deck extension project, and today we're going to be getting the fly rafters for the roof installed. I started things off by cutting my ridge beam down to size. I wanted a 1 foot overhang on each end, so I used my speed square to mark it off, and then I used my circular saw to make the cuts. Just like the regular rafters, I was able to use a scrap board against the ridge beam to mark a straight reference line, and from here I was able to make the ridge cut on the fly rafter. To attach the fly rafter in place, my dad installed a few joist hangers on the previous rafter while I cut out a few boards for the blocking. From there, we was able to secure the blocking to the joist hangers, and with the help of some clamps, we were able to get the fly rafter in place and got it secured with some more joist hangers. I repeated the same process on the other side, and it's important that you make the ridge cut identical because unlike the rafters, the fly rafters will be joined together on the center of the ridge beam, and you want to make sure that you have a tight joint. Installing the fly rafters on the south end of the roof was more of a challenge due to how high we was up in the air, and it also made for a good workout, but we was able to get it knocked out. All I had to do now was to cut the rest of the fly rafter tails, but after doing that, the fly rafters are complete. As always, thank you guys for watching the video. In the next video, me and my dad are going to be cutting all the rafter tails to size so we can start installing the fascia boards, so stay tuned. But until next time, y'all, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up, y'all? This is part 14 of the deck extension project, and today we're going to be getting the fascia boards installed for the roof. I started off by using a 2x4 to mark this rafter tail that had a crackle on the edge, and once I got this part cut off, I used a chalk line to mark the rest of the rafter tails to get them all cut to the same length. Just like the fly rafters, I'll be using 2x6s for the fascia, and once we got the fascia board up, me and my dad ran into a big problem. When installing the rafters, I forgot to use a level to ensure all the rafters were the same height, and this resulted in some of the rafter tails being higher than the fascia board. I had no idea how I was going to fix this, but after a day or two, my dad came up with this car jack idea. By using the jack and a 2x4, we were able to raise the fascia board along each of the rafter tails to get it flush, and then we used structural screws to secure it in place. We repeated the same process to install the fascia board on the other side, and since there are a lot of screw holes on the fascia, we decided to install some 1-inch by 6-inch boards over the fascia and fly rafters so that the roof will have a better overall appearance. An important tip when installing the fascia is to stagger the boards so that when it's time to place the plywood sheathing, it will sit flush along the edge, and with that, the fascia is complete. Thank you guys for watching this video. In the next one, I'm going to give you a nice aerial view of us starting the plywood sheathing, so stay tuned. But until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up y'all, this is part 15 of the deck extension project, and today we're going to be installing the plywood sheathing for the roof. To get the roof covered, we're going to be using 6 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood, and once we got the first sheet up, I marked where I needed to cut so that the edge of the plywood will fall on the center of the blocking that we placed. To rip down the plywood, I'm going to use my circular saw with my new skate plate cutting guide, and the rollers on the bottom and the edge of the guide allow me to make smooth straight cuts along the plywood. After making the cuts, we was able to place the sheet back on the roof, and then I use a chalk line to mark the rafters so that we can get the plywood nailed in place. The next sheet that I need to place is going to be a half sheet, so after doing some measuring, I was able to rip it to size. But before nailing it down, I made sure to place these sheathing clips, which are also called H-clips, between the sheets of plywood. The purpose of these clips is to provide a 1/8 inch gap between each sheet of plywood, and this allows the plywood to expand and contract over time without buckling over top of one another. When starting the second row, we made sure to use a full sheet on the opposite end so that the seams on the plywood will alternate, and we continue to use the H-clips to maintain a 1/8 inch gap between the sheets. From here and for the rest of the roof, it was basically a repeat of the same process to get the rest of the plywood sheathing installed. One thing that I used that was very helpful were these fall protection roofing brackets, and with these brackets, I was able to stand on a solid surface while moving the plywood sheets around, and it made me feel safe while working on top of the roof. Thank you guys for watching the video. In the next one, I'll be getting the drip edge and the roof underlayment installed, so stay tuned. But until next time, peace, love, and many blessings. What's up y'all, after working on and off the deck for about a year, the deck extension is completely built, and now that it's summertime, it's time to go ahead and get the deck painted. To paint the deck, I'm going to be using Liquid Rubber's deck coating kit to get the job done. I started off by using the sealant and a piece of caulk to fill any cracks, screw holes, and imperfections along the deck, and once the caulk fully cured, I used my orbital sander to sand the spots flush. To get the deck clean, I used my pressure washer with the deck and patio cleaner, and the cleaner did a great job of removing any stains and dirt that was on the deck. Before painting the deck, we need to apply the multi-purpose primer, and the purpose of the primer is to increase the bonding of the deck coating to the surface. To apply the primer, we use a combination of a 3/8 inch nap roller and a hand brush, and when applying the coating on the floorboards, you want to make sure that you brush in between the cracks as well. After letting the primer dry, it was time to apply the deck coating, and Liquid Rubber's polyurethane deck coating is 10 times stronger than regular deck paint. It has a 3-year guarantee, which means you don't have to paint your deck year after year. The deck coating comes in a smooth and textured finish, so we apply the smooth finish first on the rails, posts, and roof of the deck, and once this started to dry, we use a texture roller to apply the texture finish to the floorboards. It took a few coats of each finish to get the deck to our liking, but after taking our time with it, we was able to get the deck fully painted. Thank you guys for watching the video. I'm very impressed with the new look of the deck, and I'm glad that it's finally finished. And if your deck needs a new makeover this summer, Liquid Rubber is the way to go. If you want to learn more about Liquid Rubber's deck coating kit, check the caption below. But until next time y'all, peace, love, and many blessings.